Thank you for listening to the Golden Hour Drip podcast with me, Logan Lee Miller. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Golden Hour Drip podcast. I'm your host, Logan Lee Miller, and a very special day has passed. That was March 20th, spring. It's finally officially spring. We have had, no joke, 3 weeks of the worst rainy weather. I know the rain brings the flowers. I got tulips budding. I have some of my wandering phlox coming up. Like, I get it. With spring, it needs a little bit of rain. This goes for life as well, right? Like, we need a little bit of rain before we can shine fully into, whatever we're developing into or the person we're becoming. I get it. We needed a little bit of downtime. And to give it a little spice, make it a little bit more fun, I've been referring to the last 3 weeks of raininess as filler episodes. So whenever you're watching like Netflix original or any sort of episode show, you have the filler episodes. Not a lot happens within these episodes, but it's laying the groundwork. It's laying the groundwork for the next stage, the next pivot point, the next where we fully have to step into our full energy. So it's all right that you're a little low energy with some rain or building the foundation for the next step. I personally get a little bit restless in this time. I am on one hand super tired, super exhausted, and trying to lean into that rest and actually being restful and not, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be laying on the couch, I shouldn't be taking a nap because that's wasting time. And but instead of having that mindset where I'm resting but not fully resting, instead I'm beating myself up, I instead say, you know what, I need this rest so that I can fully show up as my biggest, brightest self when the time comes. And it's okay that I'm feeling a little bit more restful, a little bit more laid back, because I know it's coming. It is gonna be a waterfall when it gets here of events and things to do and the sunshine. Personally, winter is always super nice for spending time with your family and being indoors. I am kind of got a cabin fever almost, where I'm ready to be outside. The weather is still pretty chilly, but this last weekend my mom and stepdad came down from Iowa and we hung out this weekend. I had it in my brain, okay, it is springtime. It is almost summer, essentially, right? April's around the corner. And I was telling myself, you know what? The sun was shining for the first time in 3 weeks, and I wanted to soak it up. So I had it in my brain, we are going to be outside. And I was almost forcing it. I called several restaurants, right? Because we wanted to eat supper. And I had it in my mind, I want to be outside. I want to be out on a patio. I want to be drinking a beverage. I want to be soaking up the sunlight. And I think I might have jumped the gun just a little bit, metaphorically and literally. So I called 3 different restaurants. The restaurant that I wanted to go to, actually, it's more of an upscale restaurant in the town that I live in. They have a really cute patio, and I wanted cold shrimp, and I wanted a little beverage, and I wanted to be outside, and the sun just hits perfectly on this patio. I had it envisioned. I wanted it so bad. I could taste the drink. I could taste the cocktail sauce on the shrimp. I wanted it so bad. I called just to make sure, right? And I said, hey, well, actually, no, I didn't call for this restaurant. We went to this restaurant. I said, hey, can we get seated outside on the patio? And she goes, let me check. And I said, no, but we can seat you inside. I was like, okay, understandable. I want to be outside, but it's all right. They didn't have it open, and I wasn't going to press the matter or anything. And she says, we can get you inside, but it's going to be a 30-minute wait. And I was like, all right, like, I know that I will find a different place that will seat me outside. I said, thank you so much, but we're going to try somewhere else. So I called the Mexican restaurant in our town because they just opened like a patio last fall. And I called them. I said, hey, are you guys seating in the patio yet? They said, no. It literally has been raining. And I was like, I know, that's the whole point. It's sunny out though. It's literally sunny. I was like, okay, that's fine. Then I called a restaurant that was 20 minutes away. I said, hey, are you guys seating on your outdoor area? And they said, yes. I said, perfect, 5, please. And I hung up the phone and they said it would be a 45-minute wait. Perfect. We're gonna drive there, wait 20 minutes, 25 minutes, be seated, groovy. And so I was like, yes, I'm finally getting what I want. I get what I want. And we get there and my mom was like, oh, actually, like we need to add 4 more. So it ended up increasing the number of people that we had at the table, right? Because my aunt and uncle and cousin and grandmother came. So I was like, the more the merrier, perfect. Before we had got there, we found out that the number was going to be increased. So I called and I said, hey, like I just made a reservation. Can I add to it? We'd like to be in the patio area. And she's like, oh, I'm not sure if we're seating in the patio. And I was like, oh, like I literally just called 5 minutes ago and you guys said that you were, and I wasn't being a brat, but I was like, hey, would you mind checking? Because I called originally to make the reservation and they said we could sit outside. So she went and checked and she said, yes, like you guys can sit outside. I said, perfect, like I'm so happy. We get there and we have a fire going. It was literally the most fun. We had like little chairs outside and they get the fire going. It's like a little propane fire and we're sitting outside and we're having a blast. And since we were outside, we almost got like a little bit overlooked. It was super busy. It was Friday or Saturday night, and we got like a little bit overlooked, and we decided, okay, like we'll move to the tables so that they know like we're ready to order. They came out and they're like, let's turn on the lights for you so then you can see the menus. And they turned on lights because by this time it was like 7 o'clock. We had called at 5:30, I think. So we had waited some time and we were finally ready to order and then they turned the fans on. And the lights are connected to the fans. There's no way to just turn the lights on or just turn the fans on. They were connected. And so we're sitting out there. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm wearing my cute jeans with rips in them. I'm wearing my Birkenstocks because it's summer that I had in my head. And I'm wearing like a little sweater. And the longer we wait, the sun's going down. And we had spent probably 25 minutes out on the patio. And it was great. I got to enjoy a beverage and I got to be outside and hang out with my family, but it was almost too cold. You know, we ended up, because of the fans, we were like, okay, like, and the restaurant had cleared by that time, like it wasn't rush hour anymore. And so we didn't end up like eating inside. And I thought to myself, here I wanted so bad to be outside. I wanted to be soaking up the sun. I wanted to be like fully immersed outside, just like really enjoying it. But it's too early. How many times do we want something so bad and we want it right now that we aren't allowing everything to develop and how it should be? We're not giving the time for ourselves to grow. We are not giving the environment the opportunity to develop for that setting we want to be in. Here I was trying to force spring and warm weather and summertime, but I was gently reminded that we sometimes have these waiting periods where we don't get what we want immediately and we have to wait a little bit, and it's dreadful, don't get me wrong. Like, it is horrible trying to wait for the opportunity or wait for the thing that you want, but I know that patience is a virtue and that when summer comes, I will be even more grateful for it because I had to wait and I had to be reminded that it's okay to lay the groundwork, and it's okay to work on the things that are needed to be done before you can fully experience the stage, right? And fully experience everything. So I, this past week, was given an opportunity to speak to a group of girls that are very near and dear to my heart, kind of like a live podcast event. And I look at these other podcasters, and they have these live events, these live shows. They're huge, they're beautiful, and part of me wants that so bad. Like, I want to do that too, right? Like, we all have the big dream. If you are really good at dance, you want to be performing on a stage. If you are a great runner, you want to qualify for like the Olympics or the Boston Marathon, whatever. We all have these like huge dreams in our heads and what we want to do. And I personally am like, okay, I just want to be there. I want to get there already. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being where I'm at. I'm tired of laying the groundwork, right? But it is so important to lay the groundwork. So they're in part of my sorority, we have like an alumna Facebook group essentially, and they put on there that they were looking for someone to come and speak to the active members about a topic. Usually, like, we have these speakers come in every once in a while just to keep our meetings lively. And I volunteered. And at the time, I didn't know how impactful it would be right now today, right? It's laying that groundwork. And sometimes we're not aware of the things that are being put into place until it actually happens. We don't know what is happening until it's here, right? And I think that is what is so fun about like books. What is it called? It's like they put something in the dialogue that's something that we'll save for later or whatever. Like Dora the Explorer, that's a tool we'll save for later, or any of the cartoons that are interactive with children. It's laying the great groundwork, and then by the time you get to the middle or the end of the story, you're like, oh my gosh, like, no wonder she went into detail about the silver cake platter, because that was the murder weapon, or whatever. Not necessarily like murderous and the groundwork for me, but just when you're reading a murder mystery in the beginning, that they lay into detail about one certain thing, and then it comes to fruition, and that was like a vital piece to the story, right? And so in November, December, when I originally agreed to do this, I didn't know how impactful it would be. And I didn't understand where the trajectory of everything would be going, and what dreams and daydreams for sure, or thought processes I would have come springtime, right? And so you never know when you can say yes to something that it will actually be a huge pivot point. So here I am, I'm watching all of these podcasters have like live events and live shows and doing all these fun things, and deep down in my heart, I'm like, I will be doing that. Like, I will have that one day. And so I'm feeling so jealous. I'm trying not to be jealous, but still like celebratory towards these other individuals, because I fully think that if you don't clap for other people, then your time to be clapped for will never come. And so I kind of force myself to do it when I'm not feeling it genuinely. And this isn't a bad thing, but I'm just trying to practice it for myself, because it doesn't always come naturally. Very, very competitive. And so that's something that I have to work on. And so it makes me dial down even harder. Like, if I see something and I'm like, man, I wish I had that, I immediately like go and support it. I comment, I save, like whatever is going to boost them, because I know like one day like it'll come around to me. And you might feel the same way. Like you see someone in your class, or someone getting the raise or the promotion, or the first chair in the music, whatever it is. And you might feel like this jealousy of, when will it be my turn? I fully believe that if you can clap for that person, then your turn to be clapped for will come even quicker. If at all, like if you never celebrate other people, then you just you're not in the right mindset, right? And so I want to force myself into that right mindset. So I will dial down even harder. I will support it even harder. I will sign up for that course, that class, that live event, whatever it is. Like I'm signing up for it. I'm supporting them because one day I would like to be supported, right? And so I'm thinking all these things and I just want to rush the process, right? Like I want it to be rushed and I just want to have it right now. And I think when we have things right now, we do not get to experience the journey. I just saw a little interview with Miley Cyrus, and she was talking about how she grew up and how she loves that she grew up to be Hannah Montana, and how that was such an important part of her story, but she wouldn't necessarily want to sing any of the Hannah Montana songs because that was like a part in her life, but it's just not where she is now. And I was trying to think, you know, she has the very iconic song about the climb. And I just think to myself, oh my gosh, like this is the part that is going to be the most fun in my journey. It's not going to be when I make it, quote unquote, when I make it, but instead it's going to be how I got super clear on what I wanted, how I got really just gritty and got it completed. And I know that that will be what I look back on. Because now for when I look back in college, I wasn't looking, oh, those super fun events, like they were awesome and cool, but it was in the in-between as well that I remember and I look back to. It's the journey of college. It's not, okay, I went to college, it was completed, I graduated. It was more like, okay, it was these each individual things for college that made up the college life. And each single day is what makes up your life, right? So I'm thinking all these things and I'm wanting to rush it so bad, and I wasn't even thinking the correlation between the two. I'm like, okay, like I would love to volunteer, that would be great. I love to be any part of my sorority because that's such a huge part of my collegiate years. So I was like, absolutely yes, like I will do it. And I honestly was super nervous, and I was thinking to myself, what qualifies me as an individual who can come and speak to a group of women? And I was just having all sort of like self-sabotage and a little bit of imposter syndrome, honestly. I was thinking, oh my gosh, like what did I sign up for? How am I going to do this? Like, I need to put on a segment for these girls. I want it to be impactful. I don't want it to be something that they just kind of like sit through and not really take anything away from. I always want to give value, and I want people to have like some sort of takeaway from them. And so I was thinking about it, and every single day for 3 weeks, because I didn't want to get too ahead of my planning, because I think when you give yourself a lot of time, that's the time that will take you to complete it. If you have not heard of Parkinson's Law, it is all about if you have a certain time period to complete a task, the task time to complete it will grow to that time period that you give it. And so I was like, all right, I am not going to plan too far ahead, but 3 weeks before the live event, essentially, my presentation, I would sit at the cafe during my lunch break, and I went to this little coffee shop. It was honestly like the best part of my day. So I like packed my laptop every single day, and I packed a book and a notebook. Right now, you guys know, I absolutely love having little notebooks. This is actually a new notebook that I got because I filled my lemon notebook completely up, and it's time for a new one. I like to jot down like my thoughts, my feelings. If I have an idea that strikes, I always like to have a notebook. I try to date it. The conception of this podcast actually came from like a new notebook. It was cardboard bound, and I was flying to my sister Ashley's wedding when I was really like getting the concrete ideas down, because I had like a crazy flight there and back, and it was like turnaround time was like less than 48 hours. It was insane. So I love notebooks and I love to jot things down, and so I brought my notebook, my laptop, and a book, because I would time block, one of my favorite techniques when you need to get something done. So I'd be like, okay, 10 minutes, I'm gonna work on this, and this, or just even one thing, like I'm gonna work on this for the first 10 minutes. And I'd set my phone timer for 10 minutes, and then after the 10 minutes were done, I would take like a 4-minute break reading my book, or a 10-minute break reading my book, 20-minute on like doing something, and I worked on my presentation. I worked on a PowerPoint because I was petrified I would forget everything when I was standing up there and it wouldn't be structured enough. I personally have a very hard time simplifying things. I'm working on that. And I remember having this overcomplicated habit, if you will, ever since like the first time I can remember having it was in middle school. I would like write a book all the time, especially like during like study hour. We had computers, and I would like write a book, and I thought it was going to be the best book ever, but I would literally only write a paragraph because the story in my head was already huge, and like I felt like I could not explain it in simple terms on the piece of paper, because the story in my head was too big, and I didn't know how to simplify it, and I didn't know how to create the setting and the foundation, right? Like this honestly has been a theme for me, always thinking about the big picture, wanting it now, a completed book or a podcast event, and not realizing that I have to lay the foundation, I have to wait, I have to be patient, I have to build the muscle, I have to build the self-assuredness, I need to build the knowledge. So it's always been like that, and I was struggling so hard. I just wanted it to be in simple steps for it, and I wanted to just make sure that it was quality content. I was so nervous, and so every single lunch break I would be out here sitting in this coffee shop, and honestly, like, there's the sweetest girl there. She honestly, like, she is just so sweet and positive. Sarah, if you're listening to this, thank you. You are such a light. But I just went there all the time. So I'm like, all right, like the barista knows my name. Like that's good. But it's also like, dang, I'm spending a lot of money on coffee. But I needed to be focused. I needed to be so dialed in. I needed to be focused. And I felt like this environment was the perfect environment to do it. So I would type on my computer, and then I'd read my book or I'd journal. And I started out with like a huge, very expansive concept or topic, if you will. And that was confidence. And I was trying to think of like confidence in a term for myself, and also in the mindset of when I was in college. And confidence, like, that's a pretty broad topic. But they wanted something around women empowerment and confidence. So I was like, all right, like this will be perfect. It's kind of big, but I wanted to simplify it as easy as possible. So I would just like work on it. I gave myself 3 weeks, and I tried to just dump everything out on a paper. I journaled it, and then I like started on the PowerPoint, because my biggest fear was I was going to get up there, and one, I was going to have such stage fright that I was going to forget everything, all the ideas, all the topics were literally going to fall out of my brain. Or I would go down a rabbit hole and never come out. Like, oh, squirrel, like what's up? What can I do? And so I wanted it to be really just good content, and I hope that I've achieved that. But it came down to the day that I was supposed to go and do my little live event, my little speaking event. And this was the first time since college. I mean, I definitely, I did presentations in class. Like, I think we all do presentations in class, but this was my first time doing some sort of live audience event. And it was the day of, and I was nervous. Oh my gosh, like I was so nervous for no reason. It reminds me back to like my pageant days where I took forever to get ready and forever to perfect the content. I'd gotten home from work, I took a shower, I put my hair in the little like foam dowel rod is the only thing I can think of it for heatless curls. I had that in my hair, and I had changed to like super soft sweatpants and just being comfy because I didn't want to wear my clothes and get them all sweaty before I was supposed to go, and I was just working on this, and it came up to the very last moment to leave, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've got to get this done, and I was all nervous, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was going to meet them for lunch or for supper before the event. And honestly, like that was the best thing for me in this instance, because I was just my heart was pounding already, and I was just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like why am I so nervous? I literally sit down every single week and I talk for an hour completely by myself. Like, why am I so nervous for something that is going to be my sorority sisters, right? Like they are, we already have something in common, right? Like we all joined a sorority. Two, they are nice, right? Like, and it's not like they're expecting a whole lot. I mean, I used to be in the sorority. We would have speakers come from like different, like classes, like professors. I don't know. Like I was trying to calm myself down, and I went to a local restaurant with them, and we sat and ate, and I relaxed a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is fine. Like it is chill. These girls are so sweet. There's let's see, 4, 5, 6. I think there were 6 of them, and they met me for supper, and they were the kindest, sweetest individuals, and I really enjoyed getting to know them and a little bit about like their backgrounds, and I started to relax a little bit. I was like, okay, like this will be fine. But then the event, after we ate and everything, I chowed down on an Asian salad. It was so freaking good. It honestly, like, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't want to eat and then not feel good, and maybe throw up or something. I was like, okay, like I cannot absolutely like spill on myself. I was wearing the cutest little white t-shirt. It's not a t-shirt, it's more like a fitted shirt I got from MKT is one of the boutiques in my town, and they honestly such good quality clothing. But it was such a versatile shirt. I was like, I've got to get this. But I didn't want to spill anything on my white t-shirt, so I'm like, okay, I gotta eat really gently. I can't spill, I can't do anything. This Asian salad was so good. And by the end of the like conversation, I was like, okay, like I'm relaxed, I'm feeling good. And then I start to pack up, like the supper is done, and I got in my car to drive to where we were going to be having the meeting. And I was like packing up all of my stuff for my car, and I was like, okay, I have a camera and I have a recording. Like I recorded on my phone because I think that self-evaluation is so important for personal growth, because you need to know where you're at in order to be able to know where you can grow. And I was like, all right, I need my cell phone, I need my extra cell phone, I need my computer, I need my camera, all these things, right? And so I like piled it in my arms, and I'm walking there, and there are like 20 girls, 25 girls in a room, all seated already, and I'm walking in with the girls who I had supper with, and oh my gosh, like a ton of bricks. I got nervous, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is for real. Like, this is something that is going to happen. Like, this is no longer just an idea. And I had this moment with myself where I just thought to myself, I was like, you are literally about to go speak to all these girls about confidence, and you are self-doubting yourself right now. And I had even more self-imposter syndrome. I was like, oh my gosh, like, who are you if you're literally nervous right now? And I did take a moment to collect myself. They were finishing up like their announcements, and I just thought to myself, you know what, like, this is a perfect example on how to cultivate and to really flex and exercise that confidence muscle. Because to have confidence is actually to have trust in yourself, and to know that even if you don't have all the answers or are not the perfect person or where you want to be completely, it still gives an opportunity for growth. Because when we get uncomfortable and when we put ourselves in these situations where we can practice our growth and our self-assessment in life, then we're able to really fail fast and then be able to shift and pivot to then figure out what works and figure out what doesn't work. So I was just like, okay, like, this is a perfect practice opportunity, and that is how you are going to do it. And you're also going to have fun. I think sometimes I get so caught up in my head, and maybe you do the same, where you want it to be perfect and you want to have all of these deliverables, and you're like, it's gotta be great, like, it's gotta be this, it's gotta be that. And I just kind of let go of all expectations, and I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to bring value, and I wanted to practice. And it was the perfect place for me to just really get quiet and think, oh my gosh, like, this is all about preparation. This is all about having the foundation. And I was thinking to myself, these big podcasters are throwing these huge live events, and I thought to myself, can you imagine right now, instead of 25 girls, there was 25,000 girls in here? You would be freaking out even more because you have not practiced and you have not had the opportunity to let yourself grow, or to have that experience, and you're rushing it. And this is perfect. Starting small is so perfect, because it lets the pressure off of you. And if you're anything like me, you might have these big aspirations, these big goals, and you want it right now, and you want it as soon as you can get it. I completely relate. I feel that. But sometimes we have to slow down, and we have to realize we can't have everything all at once. And the overnight success that we see all the time is actually like years and years, moments, days, hours of practicing and honing in on that skill, and putting it out there and getting the experience, and failing fast, and being able to pivot and seeing what works. And in that moment, I was just so grateful. One, that they were allowing me to come and talk to them. I mean, that in itself is awesome. And I wanted to just feel that gratefulness. And I had such a good conversation with them during supper, and I was like, this is going to be great. And so I allowed all of the pressure to just come off me. Now, just because I was in the right mindset did not mean that I fully got it, right? Like, you're still going to have adrenaline. You're still going to be nervous, even if you are in the right mindset. And I felt myself getting out of breath a little bit, and I was just trying to calm myself, but it went super great. And I didn't think that it went as good as it did, because I feel like I'm my biggest critic. And so I'm like, after it was done, I felt like I was on a high, but I was like, this could have been better. You stumbled on this part. You didn't give a space for this. I was automatically already self-criticizing. And before I had like finished my presentation, I wanted a quick survey because I wanted it to be a great learning opportunity for me. And I even told everybody who was there, I was like, hey, like, thank you for letting me come and talk to you guys. I need some practice, right? And it took the pressure off, but I waited 2 full days before I even read the survey because I was nervous. I was so nervous. And I read it like 2 days after, and as I'm scrolling through all the comments, and I asked, what was your biggest takeaway, and what did you like about the presentation? And as I was reading it, I literally started to cry because I had picked myself apart. I had self-doubt, and the feedback was truly, it was so helpful. It was a pivotal moment for myself, and I thought, oh my gosh, like, I'm so grateful that they allowed me to come and talk to them, but the facts, maybe they lied to me, I don't know, but all of the feedback was so positive and so helpful for me, and I was just like so happy. Like that's all I can summarize it to is I was just so grateful and so happy, and I was crying. And it was like while we were watching TV, right? Like I needed something to kind of distract. And Garrett looks over and he says, is everything okay? What's wrong? And I was like, no, like everything is fine. Like I'm just having a moment. But I was like, this is perfect, This was the perfect opportunity for me to kind of eradicate that self-doubt and to have a win, right? Like a little win, so then I can build upon. So when I don't have like that great experience like I did at this speaking event, when something worse happens, I can go back and think, you know what, like I did okay before, I can do okay again. So with my survey, I had a few, I had a question that was like, what was something that you wish I would have talked about but didn't talk about for confidence? And I just wanted to take a moment to answer the girls' questions that asked it because I was so grateful for the feedback. So I took all the questions that they had, and I'm going to answer them now. So it's a live Q&A, if you will, for the podcast. But we're going to get into it for the feedback survey because I was trying to think of a way that I could like get the answers back to you guys, and I was like, this will be perfect. And so here is questions, a Q&A, if you will, about confidence. So the first question, Lauren asked, how do you maintain confidence in a new uncomfortable situation? So I had a very uncomfortable situation with the live event, right? Like a live speaking event, a live podcast, if you will. And I was uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable. And I think it's important, one, to share the realness of it. And I think it's important to share where you start. I think a lot of people just share the end result, the end goal, and not everybody shares like the moments of weakness or the areas where they weren't feeling real good. Like I was not feeling too hot. Like I was trying to avoid heavy food because I felt like salad, like if I accidentally got nervous and threw it up, like it'd be no big deal. But when that was an uncomfortable situation for me. And I feel like with my podcast, because that's what I referred back to, Logan, you can sit and talk for an hour on your podcast. You can sit and talk to these girls for 30 minutes. And I thought to myself, yeah, but I can, if I wanted to, I can edit my podcast. I can delete an episode and I can restart at any time. Even if I do a speaking content like on Instagram or TikTok, I can delete it. I can get the best take. But for this, it was very uncomfortable because I only had one take, right? It was a live audience. I couldn't just like say, okay guys, let me start over, because I love perfectness, but I'm striving for perfection over I'm striving for progress over perfection. I'm not worrying about being perfect. I'm just worried about it being completed. And then even if it is fast and ugly, like being able to then refine it over time. So it was an uncomfortable situation. I was super, super nervous, but I just had to remind myself that it was not going to kill me. Okay. Even if I completely stuttered, if I blushed up, this is what I was telling myself, like sometimes I get hives when I'm uncomfortable, especially on my neck and chest. And I just thought to myself, you know what? Even if I am super uncomfortable, even if I throw up literally in the middle of this room, it will be fine because I will not die. You cannot die from throw up. You cannot die from embarrassment. And even if I ran out of this room, I was not going to die. And sometimes that is a super extreme situation, but having confidence is just knowing that you will be okay no matter what. And I personally, like, conflict is not something that I like. It's not something that I run towards, right? I think that for my personality, I want everyone to feel comfortable and I want everyone to feel like they have a voice, and sometimes that means like my voice is not heard. But I do not think that is correct, and I do think that you should stand up for yourself, and so sometimes you're going to be in uncomfortable situations and you're going to have to tell someone exactly how you feel or think, because whatever situation is happening, it's being detrimental to you and you are losing sleep or not feeling good about it, and sometimes you have to tell someone or present or do something. And I think just remembering that you will survive and you will get through this, and then you will be able to look back on it and think, oh my gosh, like I did it. And another thing that helps me is I think back at other uncomfortable situations, and I survived it then, I can survive it now, and I use that to instill even further confidence in myself. So thank you, Lauren, for your question. I appreciate it. Moving on to Delaney's. Delaney had a part 1 and a part 2. So part 1 said, what do you do during the times where you struggle with confidence? And that's part 1. And then part 2 is, how do you give yourself a confidence reset? So the first one, during the times of struggle, I really tried to center myself. I tried to calm my brain down because I do have internal dialogue in my brain. And so I'm constantly thinking about all the different situations, and I'm talking to myself essentially in my brain. And I give myself a pep talk. That I can fake it, that I can show up, that nobody knows what's happening inside my body. I've done this before where I have felt super anxious or unwell. Nobody can tell. Literally nobody can tell. Even if you're a little red, even if you have a little bit of blush or hives like I do, nobody can really tell. And it's, even if they do notice, oh, your neck's a little red, they really honestly can't tell that much. You could just be having a skin reaction, and most people won't comment on it if they're polite. If they're not polite, then they might comment on it, and then you know, hey, this isn't a person I want to surround myself with. But usually I can tell myself like a little bit of a pep talk in my brain that even if I'm feeling this way, even if I'm feeling anxious or not ready for it, that it is essentially all in my body, nobody can tell. And so I can fake it, because if they can't tell that I'm nervous, they won't be able to tell that I'm faking my confidence. So I can go out and show up as the best version of myself because I'm pretending, right? Like, you fake it. Because just like when you are crying and you smile, that's what I do when I'm crying and I need to get over the tears and show up. I fake smile, I dance, because your body knows no difference. So if you are acting confident, you will start to feel confident. If you are sad and start to smile, your body knows no difference, and you can trick yourself into being happier and being more confident, even if it's for a temporary time, so that you can get through that uncomfortable situation and then move on from it and then cry later. That's what I normally do. And then part 2, how do you give yourself a confidence reset? this happens to me, when I am speaking to people. In my job, it's very customer service related. So sometimes I do not feel confident. I will say there has been a time where I had a customer who was completely rude. She was totally unhelpful. I was outside of my own realm of work, and I was trying to help in a department that isn't necessarily mine, and I was trying to extend the knowledge and give the best customer service because there was no one else there to give it. I was it. And so I just was trying to talk to her, and she was completely rude. I could feel my body getting frustrated, and I just took a deep breath, breathed in, and I let it out. And luckily I was over the phone. So I just took a deep breath, and I was able to recenter myself and then say, hey, I understand, this is what I'm working on. I'll follow up with you. I'll get back to you. And she said, all right, hung up. And then I was able to let the tears fall or get frustrated. I didn't necessarily cry, but it was kind of just that steamed up frustration. And I was able to get through the conversation because I recentered myself. I took care of it, and then I was able to get off the phone and then cry if I needed to, be frustrated if I needed to, make an ugly face if I needed to. But it's difficult, and you're not always going to feel completely confident in every single situation. And sometimes just taking a deep breath, or a square breath, I like to call it, it's 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Or once you take the deepest breath possible and you let all of your lungs expand, take in an extra. So it's that extra little set that you take in will help reset your nervous system, and then you can feel more confident. So sometimes I do that right before a presentation or a meeting with a customer, or if I'm going to give them kind of bad news. I like to take that deep breath so that I can reset my body. So trick yourself, act confident when you're not confident, and square breaths. They are so imperative. Thank you, Delaney, for your question. Elaine said, how can you help others gain confidence? So I'm not sure if you mean how can I help you gain confidence, or how you can maybe help a peer, but I'm thinking maybe you want to help someone else, maybe a friend or a sister or a brother or something, gain confidence. And I think the best way to help someone else gain their own confidence is to speak positively to them, to tell them, oh my gosh, you are so good at this, because confidence is the trust in yourself. And so when you can tell someone, oh my gosh, you are so poised, you are so well spoken, you are so good at math, when you give that positive affirmations, when you can give them that framework, so then they start to believe it themselves. Oh my gosh, you show up so confidently when you walk into a room. Then they start to believe it. If you tell anybody a habit or a character trait that you want them to have, and you just pretend and say, oh my gosh, you are always on time. Now this only works if they actually do it once or twice, right? If someone shows up to a meeting on time, be like, oh my gosh, you are always so timely, even if normally they're usually late. Or, oh my gosh, you are such a leader in this space. Now, one, you have to say it actually genuine. You cannot say it sarcastically. You cannot say it fakely. You have to make them think that they actually are. But whatever character trait you want someone else to start having, especially if you are a leader on a team and you want maybe one of your underperformers to start performing better because you know that they have that level inside of them and you want to tap into that, you can say, oh my gosh, I love that you are a leader. Can you lead the next team meeting or something? Then they're going to show up as that best, most confident self. So affirmations, telling someone that they are, so much so that then they believe it. Now, don't go overkill on this. You want to just take it easy, but that is a great way to help someone else build confidence, especially if it's an area that they want. I remember my dad helps teach basketball for kids, And I remember a parent saying, hey, like our son decided that he wants basketball to be his sport over like football and track. So, you know, that's the sport he wants to focus on. We really would like to help him with that. So dad made more special attention and said, hey, like, you're a really great ball handler or something like that. And then he was able to show up as the best ball handler that he was, right? So speaking because then it's like a self-prophecy, right? When you tell someone, oh my gosh, you are this, then they start actually to show up as that. So that is how you can help others gain confidence. Thanks for your question, Elaine. Reagan asked, where did your confidence level start? So during the presentation, I said, hey, like there's usually 3 types of people who are confident, like 1, 2, and 3. And basically level 1, low, level 2, medium, and level 3, high. And she said, where did your confidence level start at? And did you start out as a 1? How did you build it? So personally, I would say I've always had some level of confidence in myself, but not in all situations. And I think this is true for most people, and it might be true for you, where you feel, oh my gosh, like I am really good at something, but I'm not really confident showcasing that to peers. And you might feel a little bit of self-doubt. Like I feel very confident in speaking, but I still had my own self-doubt. I still had the imposter syndrome. I still felt nervous, and had all these thoughts in my head. So I think that you can be any and all of the levels in different periods of your time or in your life, and over time you'll be able to craft those and strengthen your levels of confidence for each area. Personally, an area that I struggle with for confidence is my working out. So I'm not super confident when I go to the gym. And so I would say when I first started to work out or go to the gym, I was at a level 1. I didn't really have that much confidence in it, but over time I've built that confidence. So I would say I started as a level 1, very nervous on the treadmill, and very nervous to go out to the machines and lift the weights. And right now I'd say I'm a level 1.5, 2, but I would say education. I would watch videos on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. I would follow a certain influencer, or Sculpt You has a really great app that you can have the different workouts, and she shows you how to do each of the workouts. So education has really helped grow my confidence, so then I feel knowledgeable in that area, and then practicing it. So then I was able to grow it, and maybe one day I'll be a level 3 essentially. So thank you for your question, Reagan. Augusta said, how do you manage the days when you don't feel so confident? I think we're all going to have off days. We're going to have those days where we don't feel our best, and we feel like maybe we aren't cut out for it. And I love to make sure that I'm in the best outfit. I think dressing for success is so real. Or I'll make sure that my hair is washed. I'll spend a little extra time gelling up my eyebrows, putting on my skincare, brushing my teeth. I think that the self-care habits can be really optimal for when you're needing to show up as your most confident self. Because when I'm underdressed or I don't feel super good about how I look on the outside, then I know that my inside won't be able to shine out as bright as possible because I'm worried about other things, I'm nervous about other things. So I try really hard to just make sure that I feel good in the clothes that I'm wearing, the hair, the makeup, whatever I have on, so then I can show up as my most confident self. And then once I have the outfit, once I'm feeling good, speaking positive things to myself, like, oh my gosh, you got this, like, you've done so much in the past, like you can move forward and you got this. Essentially just lie to myself in the mirror, and then I will show up as the most confident self. So thank you so much, Augusta, sorry. sorry. Okay, how did you become so confident, from Andrea? I had really good parents that told me that I could be anything I wanted to be. And back to just like speaking those affirmations, once you hear it enough, then you start to believe it. Also just self-practice, putting myself in those uncomfortable situations and sink or swim, like knowing that I would have to come out on top if I wanted to continue. And then doing that, I was able to hone in on my craft, whatever that was in that moment. And the knowledge and just knowing that I could complete it and I was not going to die. Emily asked where to start when you have no confidence. Where to start? So Emily, I would first start with just determining what you want, on why you want to have that confidence. I think it's really important to get clear on your goals, and we might want something just because we see someone else has it. But when we're able to ask ourselves, okay, why do I want this? The why can be overpowering to those days that we have the self-doubt or the imposter syndrome where we don't think that we can do it. And so just to remind yourself on why, then you're able to use that as fuel to actually show up as the most confident self and to get it done, get it completed. And so that's where you can start. And I hope that was helpful. Rachel said, how can the lack of confidence be detrimental to being productive? So for me, when I'm not feeling super confident, I will usually push it off. Just like I waited 3 weeks before, I could have started working on my PowerPoint, my presentation, my content for the event. I could have started working on that 3 months prior, but I wasn't feeling the most confident, so I waited until 3 weeks before. Now, I do think some part of that was like good because then I wasn't gonna overthink it, but also I could have started earlier, but it was that imposter syndrome. It was like, oh, you can't do this. So I think that when you are like having your self-doubt and when you're like, oh, like I can't do this, I'm gonna push it off, then that can really lead to procrastination. I promise you, the thought of doing it is worse than actually doing it. When you procrastinate so much, it builds up in your body, and it's like the anticipation, almost like it's too much. So when you're able to quit putting it off and just get it completed, it's going to make you feel way better. And confidence is not always needed to get it completed. So you can be not confident and get it completed, and then from the trust in yourself, like, oh, I got it completed, then you can build the confidence off of that. Last question, Maddie asked, examples of ways I've implemented confidence. She asked how I've implemented confidence in my day-to-day life. I would say definitely like this speaking event was out of my comfort zone, but it was a great way for me to get some practice in and start building my own confidence, right? I was nervous and I just had to lie to myself, be a little delusional that I could do it, and then I was actually able to complete it. So you're not always going to feel confident in every single area of your life. You're not going to feel super self-assured all the time, but I think you just need to, one, I love to journal. I like to write it all down, get those thoughts out of my brain because sometimes they can be swirling around. But if I'm able to get it out of my brain and get it onto paper, that makes me feel so much better. And then I'm able to show up as the best version of myself. So confidence, you're not born with it. I will tell you that. You are not born with complete confidence. It's earned. You have to show up every single day as trying new things and to get uncomfortable, because when you get uncomfortable, that is when you are going to grow the most. So there's definitely been situations I did not feel the most confident, but I told myself that if I pretended that one day I would have it. And I feel like myself, I'm on a 2.5 scale, working to a 3 scale. But it's a craft that you have to hone every single day. So Thank you so much for Sigma Kappa allowing me to come and speak to them. It was truly, truly amazing. And I cannot wait for what is to come for my live speaking event. So stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and until next time, bye.